Hey folks, this clip is brought to you by the fastest growing sports book in Tennessee, Zen Sports. And code A to Z TN, ATOZ TN to earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back on your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. That is Zen Sports.
The Lady Vols went to the SEC tournament and made it to the semifinal against South Carolina. It was nice. They beat Alabama and just kind of cleared through their first two games. And initially, they're getting blown out by South Carolina. And it's ugly. And I flipped it off. I mean, well, I didn't flip it off. I was at the Kentucky game. And I was just like, oh, boy. All right. See ya. And then we were walking out of the Kentucky game, looking at our phones, and we're like, it's a 2-point game. What the heck happened here? I mean, ultimately, we found out Tennessee had been down by 23 in that game, came all the way back, didn't just tie it, but took the lead with 1 second remaining. Now, let's also say this. Had 2 free throws that would have sealed this against 30-0 South Carolina, a South Carolina team that hadn't lost since last year's Final Four. And in 3 years, they've lost 3 games. I mean, the powerhouse of powerhouses at the moment in women's college basketball. On par with some of the best dynasties that Pat had in terms of how they play. And you had them not just on the ropes. You had them beat, period. It was over if you make your free throws. You had them done. They chucked up a terrible shot. You got a rebound. You got fouled. You go to the line, and they miss 2 free throws. So that's fundamentals right there. That's not necessarily straight up bad coaching, but it's terrible. It's something that scares me for the men's team also. but that's neither here nor there. You were 2 free throws away from ending this. And then you go down and have one of the worst endings I've ever seen in a basketball game, men's, women's. Young, old. Unbelievable. They pass the ball in. Now they pass it to South Carolina's center. And she's standing outside the free throw line. And come to find out after the game, she has never made a 3-pointer in her entire career. So maybe the thinking is, okay, let her shoot. We definitely don't want to foul. So just let her shoot it. Okay. You know what you can still do? Just put a hand in her face. Like, you can stand within 10 feet of this girl, maybe. And they didn't do any of that. Tennessee center stood in the middle of the lane and just put her hands up minimum 5 feet away, probably more than that. 5 feet down in the center of the lane, just put her hands up and just watch the ball go into the hoop. Banked off the backboard, actually, and went in. I had no word. I mean, that was, these words get overused. I was speechless. I was stunned. Watching it with this friend I went to Kentucky game with, we were just like, what? How does this happen? How did we let this happen? Just beside ourselves. No, before we actually get to Kelly, I mean, did you see this, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the ending of the game. I was like you, I didn't see the whole thing. Just kind of, I mean, honestly, didn't think they were going to have much of a shot. So credit to them for playing South Carolina hard to begin with. Secondly, that last play, I mean, that is inexcusable in that instance, obviously, from so many things. I mean, one, obviously, you have to defend everybody. Anything can go in at that point in the game. There was no real pressure on the inbounds pass either. You're making it too easy, first off, to even get the ball in. I mean, that's your first mistake there, is pressure the ball, pressure the inbounds, whoever's inbounding the ball, make them work for it, burn some clock, not have a good look from wherever they are. I mean, everybody on the floor is a shooter at that point. So there's just a lot there that was very frustrating to watch. But at the same time, it's like you should have won that game. I mean, you do what you're supposed to do on that last possession, or you hit your free throws, and that's a historic win. You're the lead on Sports Center. Everybody's talking about you, or maybe not the lead, but you might be. You're up there at the beginning, ending this winning streak. what a win that would have been for her. I mean, that would have bought, Kelly another year at least.
It would have been the greatest win that the Lady Vols have had in I don't even know. Probably since Pat was still the coach. I mean, they hadn't beat a number one team since 2005. Now, there's kind of a factor there in that Tennessee was the number one team for a huge amount of time in that period.
Yeah.
But still, like, it had been that long since you beat a number one team. And like I said, this South Carolina squad is right up there with some of the greatest that Pat had in terms of just, how many games they've won. They're on pace to go undefeated this season. And it would have been one of the finest wins in Tennessee basketball history, period, men's or women's. And that's how it ends. Now, Nicole here in the comments says that's a fireable offense. And to that, and she says that's on the coach. To that, I would say I agree, sort of. I think the fireable offenses, I would say yes, and the fireable offenses have also been a bunch of stuff that happened before this too.
Yeah. It's not just that play. Like, that play is bad, but if she's had way more success than she's had, that's just a bad look. I mean, we've good teams sometimes do dumb things and it happens, but it is the cumulative effect of everything that's happened.
5 years and really never a truly competitive team. No Final Fours. Made it to the SEC championship game. And that's the bet. Last year you beat LSU, who eventually won a national championship last year. And fair enough. It was a really huge win at the time. And I gave Kelly credit for it last year when that happened. But then win, and they were completely uncompetitive in the next game against South Carolina in the championship.
It's football season, and it's time to switch to Zen Sports, the fastest growing sports book in Tennessee, changing the bonus game with their cash rewards program. When you sign up for Zen Sports with code A2ZTN, ATOZTN, earn a welcome bonus that gives you 5% cash back on your total betting volume for your first 15 days of betting. And if you have friends who bet on sports, share your Zen Sports referral bonus code with them, and you will earn 3% of their betting volume for their first 6 months of betting on Zen Sports with no cap on how much you can earn. So what are you waiting for? Stop wasting time and money on other sports books when you could be earning real cash rewards with Zen Sports. Download today on the App Store at ZenSports.com. And your wallet will thank you later. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. That is Zen Sports. Go download it now.
And so it's the 5 year, like a bunch of people I tweeted about it, and I said this should be curtains for Kelly at Tennessee. It's too much. And I had some responses that said, oh, well, they competed that entire game and they've actually improved over the course of the season. No. It's been 5 years to improve. Like, I'm not talking about this in a vacuum as if it's just this singular thing. Like, yeah, competing with South Carolina at that level ultimately in itself is impressive. But no, it's 5 years. It's not this. It's the fact that you've had a bunch of talent and then also really not had as much talent as you could have had, frankly. Also, it's still one of the most powerful women's programs in all of women's college basketball, even now, in terms of attendance and things like that. And yet, uncompetitive. I mean, just double-digit losses. And it hasn't improved year over year. It's not like you're getting better. You're not improving. And when you watch them, the fundamentals are terrible. Tons of turnovers. And just it's brutal sometimes watching these girls. And I obviously I feel pretty strongly about this. I had my entire childhood growing up, we had season tickets to Lady Vols games. I watched hundreds of games where Pat Summitt coached live and in person. And yeah, I mean, that shadows how I look at this for sure. And there's going to be people that say, oh, well, your expectations are too high. Nobody's going to be Pat. I'm not asking her to be Pat. That's the thing. I'm not asking her to be Pat.
Just be in the mix.
Just be competitive. Don't lose double-digit games in a season. That's what I'm asking for. And so it's got to be time. And you have the right AD now, I think, to go out and make a real hire. A lot of people say, oh, who would you go out and hire? And I've seen a lot of people saying the coach at Grand Canyon University, she's winning a ton of games, and is kind of a trendy pick right now. No offense to her, but I think Tennessee can do better than that. I just really do. Now, is it going to be Dawn Staley? No. Dawn Staley has no motivation to leave South Carolina. Why would she do that? And you're also not going to pay your women's coach. I mean, you probably have to pay her like $6 million or something. I want to say she makes like $3 million already. So it would be a hefty payday. And so I think you could go one I always look at is Brenda Freeze at Maryland. She's won a national championship, has had a ton of really competitive teams. And if you can bring her in to what is, in my opinion, the greatest program in the history of the sport, give her those resources. Now, I think she's like a near lifer at Maryland at this point. I think she's been there almost like 20 years or something. But somebody like that, like actually swing for this thing and really actually go for it. I mean, I would say ask Dawn Staley. At least see. You at least got to, knock on that door. But she's not coming. But just be serious about it. I think you have the right AD, and it's over. I mean, it just is. It's over. Like, we gotta just call it what it is. It's 5 years. It's not even like it's just year 2 or year 3. 5 years. That's a full recruiting cycle plus 1 year. Come on, it's over. But I don't know if you agree with me there, Zach.
Yeah, I think it should be over, and I think everybody likes Kellie Harper, but I think we know who she is at this point. She's the same coach that she's been throughout her career, from NC State to Missouri State. I mean, at her best, it's like a 25-10, type season. Really,
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of the ceiling there, and we've seen nothing to suggest otherwise. I mean, if she had not played at Tennessee, I think the calls for her job would be very, very, very loud by now. If this was somebody that had not played for Pat Summitt and had come over and taken this program over and lost the game like that, playing that kind of defense and that kind of, fundamentals, everybody would be calling for her job. I mean, Butch Jones, you take the personality out of it, when you're losing to Alabama by 30-some points still in year 4, 2016, people were like, okay, you can't defend that type of stuff. So you kind of got to take those orange blinders off when it comes to Kellie Harper, I think, and just look at the results the way it's happened. It's not going to change anytime soon. Even if you had beat South Carolina, honestly, it's still probably not much is going to change because it's such a kind of a roller coaster under her. And that's, coaching's hard. It's really hard. And that's why programs go through so many coaches. So there's no shame in the fact that it hasn't worked out. It's just a really hard thing to do on a really big stage at Tennessee. It's a lot of pressure. It's a different challenge now anyways, even in women's basketball with the NIL era, transfer portal stuff. It's not coaching the way that she was coached by Pat. It was a lot of things that are done differently now. That style that Pat Summitt probably wouldn't fly today, or you'd lose a lot of transfers. It's just a different era. That's just the way it is. So I think it's definitely time to move on. And you just got to trust Danny White in this too, because I'm sure there's some really talented, women's basketball coaches out there that we haven't heard a lot about, that if they had the right resources, they could do really good things. And that's not to say, go try to make a budget hire. Just go try to make the right hire. The kind of atmosphere that's at Tennessee right now between the football and basketball and baseball and softball and pretty much all the sports right now at Tennessee. There's this harmony that has not existed in a very, very, very long time. So you got to bring somebody who's going to fit into that. I think Danny White has earned enough capital at this point with what everything he's accomplished. He's got some equity built up that you can trust him. And if it hire seems underwhelming, like just give it a shot. Whoever it ends up being, if he does end up having to make a hire, I tend to think he'll make a change because I think he understands the brand. Danny White came here because of the brand that Tennessee is. Lady Vols are obviously a huge part of that. I think he fully understands what he has here that he's kind of got to be the caretaker of. He gave Kellie a legit chance. Like, he didn't come in and just, toss her, fire her after one season. He's been here 3 years now, since 2021. He gave her a fair chance. So nobody can, blame the AD type thing, kicking a Lady Vol out. So it wouldn't surprise me if he does make the move this year.
I think it would say a lot if he were to do that. And it would speak to him being truly serious about the what's the right word? The gravity of that program, and that he still is in touch with where that program needs to be. I mean, there is a statue to Pat Summitt outside of Thompson Bowling Arena. We got to be real here. A legend built this house. And this is a great comment from Caleb. He says, it's not fair to Pat to just be in the mix. They should be able to hire a top-notch coach. That's well said. It really is. You're not honoring her tradition by being okay with mediocrity, because Pat wouldn't have been okay with that. Never would that have been all right in her tenure. And Jason also says it here, kind of what we've been saying. It's a fireable offense on top of everything else. The South Carolina game. He said the South Carolina game was the dagger. Yeah. I think
Kellie, you could see it in Kellie's face. You had to kind of empathize with her. You could see how much that loss hurt. And I think in that moment, that shot of her, when that shot goes in, you can see kind of everything there, like the weight of it, the reality of it, what it would have meant, what it means that it didn't happen.
Yep.
And probably what it means for her future. It was hard not to feel for her in that situation, just as a human. Like, that's a tough spot to be in for sure.
Yes, because she ultimately she is one of the greats to ever play for Pat Summitt, and was on multiple national championship winning teams, and is a legend in her own right as a player. But that the program is bigger than one of the great players. It's the program. it's not. We're not the Tennessee Kellie Harpers. We're the Tennessee Volunteers. So